You've created an online family tree. You've made some great discoveries about your ancestors. You've added dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe even thousands of source records to your tree. What do you do with all this info? What happens to all these records? Hey everyone, I'm Robert White. Welcome to my Black Oak Memories YouTube channel. I've been researching my family history for over 10 years, building off work my parents and grandparents had passed down. Since 2020, I've helped other friends, family, and customers celebrate their roots with custom family tree designs and research. And last year, I started sharing some of my family history resources and family tree designs on Etsy at Black Oak Memories. You can take a look at my shop by visiting the link down in the description. Today, I want to share some tips on organizing digital genealogy records. It's a bit of a tongue twister somehow, and it can also be a huge headache. One of the easiest ways to research our family history is to build a tree through online services like Ancestry or MyHeritage or Family Search. But what happens after we've built a tree online? What happens to our hard work if we cancel our subscription, or if records access changes, or the company goes out of business, or we lose access some other way? All of that research can disappear. So right now is the right time to get organized and save your hard work. To be clear, for most services, if you cancel your subscription, all of your hard work still stays there, but you just might not be able to access the same records that you had before. For any of these tips, take what works for you and leave what doesn't. Give it a try. If it feels right, that's great. If it doesn't, if it's not easy and intuitive, then you can say you tried and move on. I found this works best for me, so if it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. Here's the plan. Create an organized folder structure, and then create a backup right out of the gate. That way, when we download the files, we have somewhere for them to go. After we download them, we want to give them smart file names. And we want to make sure that we save the sources with them. Then we put them in the right folder and duplicate as needed. Again, if any of this helps you, great. I recommend organizing your approach before you save anything. Start with the structure. Find a good location on your computer to hold everything and give it a smart name. Then start creating folders for each of your ancestors. I use a pedigree numbering method known as the Ancestry method to number my ancestors' folders. Then I include their full name at birth. This keeps them organized by generation, and then by father and mother pairs. To learn more about the Ancestry method, check out my video link in the description. Once you have your main directory and ancestor subfolders created, decide on a backup plan. I'm using Google Drive for mine, so everything is synced to the cloud. When I save a record here, it shows up in the cloud. It also means I can access any of my records on any device, which is way more useful than it might sound. I also make regular backups onto Microsoft OneDrive and a portable hard drive just to be safe. Alright, so you have a good folder structure and you're already backing it up. Now you're ready to start saving records. What constitutes a record? It can be anything that you feel is important that contains information about your ancestor. This could be documents like census records or birth or death records, marriage certificates, photographs, written correspondence, newspaper clippings, and so on. If you've used a service like Ancestry, then you've likely already come across some of these files. But you may not have known that you can save them to your computer. Once I have a record I'm ready to save, my next task is to decide what to name the file. I could just save it as it is, but that won't be very helpful when I want to find it again later. It's always a smart idea to use descriptive file names regardless of what sort of file you're saving. In this case, I use a pretty simple naming pattern, like type of file _ date _ whatever the original file name was, which is usually a code or other organization scheme that might come in handy again in the future, and I don't want to lose it. I know other genealogists and YouTubers recommend much more specific names, but I found this works best for me. I name the file based on what it is and not who it's about. I'll know who it's about because it's saved in their folder. After we've saved the file, we can attach other helpful information to the images. I recommend saving the source citation in the image metadata. Now that we have the census record saved to an ancestors folder, complete with source information, we can copy it to the folder of anyone else who may appear in the record, like a spouse or a child. This is one of the reasons I don't include the ancestor's name or details within the name of the file. Like I mentioned before, it's my preference to name files based on what the file is and not who it's about. This means making copies of the exact same file, one for each ancestors folder, which results in creating complete and consistent folders for each individual ancestor. If a family member wants access to a certain relative's records, I know I can provide them with one folder that has a complete set of records for that specific relative and no one else. So let's try an example. Let's use the 1891 Census of Canada. I found this record on Ancestry for my ancestor Robert White, not me, but a great-grandfather. It's a common name in the family tree, so it seems like a reasonable place to start. Looking more closely at the record, we can find Robert White halfway down in row 12. Within his household, we also find his wife Elizabeth, my great-grandmother, and their son Francis Hugh, my grandfather. These are 3 of my direct ancestors, so this is definitely a record that I want a copy of on my computer for each of them. A quick tip before we even save the file. Did you know you can change how the records appear on Ancestry? If you click the wrench icon, you'll see an on-off option called Enhanced Images. If you turn this off, the images will look as they were when they were photographed. A little bit more gray. Ancestry adds a filter to enhance the images by increasing the contrast so they're easier to read. I actually find the gray tones easier to read than the higher contrast version, so that's the version that I'm going to save. You can save the image by clicking the wrench icon and clicking Download. After clicking Download, it gives me a pop-up to find a place to save the file. Right now we've been researching Robert White, so let's go find his folder in the directory we created earlier. From there, we want to give it a descriptive name. Following my preferred naming pattern, I keep the file name that came with it, then I add 1891_census_ to the beginning of it and hit save. Next, I want to add the source citation. To do that, let's go back to Ancestry, where we can find the source right there in the sidebar of the record page. I right-click the file I saved in the last step, and I go down to Properties. If I open the Details tab, I can see all of the image metadata that I can edit. For my purposes, I want to add the source details as a comment, so I double-click the comments and paste it in. Hit Enter, click OK, and I'm done. Now that I've saved and named the file, I can copy it to Elizabeth and Francis's folders and know that it has a smart name with source information. If a relative of Robert White wants details about him, I can easily share his folder and know they won't be getting records about some other ancestor they might not be related to. And just like that, you're well on your way to well-organized digital genealogy records. Please like and subscribe if you want more genealogy tips like this. You can find more helpful resources on my Etsy store, and make sure to follow @BlackOakMemories on Instagram while you're at it. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy bringing your memories to life.